Yacht Mysteries Unveiled, a look at the secret agendas of celebrities. Did you know that on average, a celebrity-chartered yacht party can cost up to and more than $150,000 a week? It's absolutely crazy how expensive these things are. Even renting a small yacht that can accommodate about 30 people can cost up to $10,000 per week. So yes, it's pretty luxurious and not for everyone. Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the yachting culture and the A-list parties. We're going to explore the dark side of these so-called mega yacht fun and pleasure expeditions and the consequences associated with them. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Yachting is a pretty well-known and popular secret in the entertainment industry. Then why call it a secret? Well, that's because it's always an exclusive event, not accessible to the average and ordinary. A yachting event comes with all manner of top-notch celebrities, renowned models, up-and-coming actors, and at times, even royalty. If you're hearing this term for the first time, yachting is essentially used to explain the act of being paid a decent sum of money just to spend some quality and fun time with celebrities and affluent corporate clients aboard some of the biggest and most luxurious yachts in the world. The practice is a go-to strategy for fake-it-till-you-make-it girls, who in their path or an attempt to become famous will try anything to associate themselves with the super-rich and influential circle to help boost their social and professional profile. However, yachting also has a dark and murky side, laden with drug abuse, sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and coercion. A lot of young men and women try to get into the yachting scene with the primary objective of making connections in the entertainment or corporate industry. However, as nice and fun as it may sound, yachting is far from luxurious. Let's start with how the yachting culture shamelessly exploits the health and well-being of the hard-working men and women on the boats. Sure, it's understandable that working as a yacht crew can be a bit stressful, but what we're talking about is pushing them to the absolute edge, working in strenuous conditions, resting and sleeping in very small rooms, and spending time far away from the families for days and weeks at a time, completely isolated. All of this can cause a great deal of both emotional and physical stress, anxiety, and in some cases, depression. But what is equally disturbing is the fact that a lot of the time, the crew members have to put up with disorderly conduct and verbal abuse by the guests who think they're entitled to everything in the world. It's absolutely disappointing to see that the yachting companies have yet to incorporate a proper human resource management system on board their vessels, like what you have in land-based corporate ecosystems. While maritime laws are quite strict about alcohol and drug use, it's important to keep in mind that we're talking about the mega wealthy, popular, and affluent individuals. For them, it seems as if there is little to no enforcement, and drug use and excessive alcohol use are rampant in excessive and elaborate yacht parties. While it won't be fair to make generalizations, you have to understand that the yachting culture is that of excessive indulgences and a party lifestyle. Plus, you're basically out in the open ocean, several hundred miles away from the nearest coastline, which means you basically have a free hand to do whatever you want. Long hours combined with social isolation and the charm of glamorous parties with celebrities and beautiful models most certainly contribute to drug use and excessive drinking. Unfortunately, the same can also be said about the crew members on board the vessel. Staying away from their families for days and weeks combined with long work hours and strenuous tasks leads many to take to the drink or the consumption of mainstream drugs such as marijuana to get a bit of rest and relaxation. However, the consequences attached to this sort of behavior are quite significant. Drug and alcohol abuse can lead to a variety of complications such as impaired judgment, safety hazards, and potential damage to the yachting company's reputation, along with the reputation of the people on board, especially the A-listers. Yachting culture is primarily accessible to millionaires and billionaires. The process of buying, maintaining, and hiring the crew of a luxurious boat alone is in the millions and not for everybody, which resoundingly highlights the huge wealth gap in today's society. And as mentioned, chartering a yacht that can accommodate 100+ people for an exclusive party can cost up to and more than $150,000. So for an average person working a 9 to 5 and earning up to $50,000 to $60,000 per year, and riddled with debt, it is nothing more than a pipe dream. And get this, a lot of the yachting destinations are reserved exclusively for the ultra-rich, further reinforcing class divisions. Plus, getting memberships to exclusive yacht clubs is impossible for an ordinary person, working-class individual. The docking and membership fees alone can be worth an average house. Now that we've made it quite clear that yachting culture is basically for the 1%, let's look at some adverse implications associated with this practice. Yes, in some areas, the presence of exclusive boat clubs and yachting culture can easily propel the cost of living. This can make it difficult for ordinary citizens to buy homes and/or make access to other community amenities more expensive. In addition, this unnecessary gentrification can also further widen the wealth gap, spreading inequality amongst domestic communities. EcoWatch recently published an eye-opening report after evaluating the carbon footprint generated by up to 20 billionaires. The environmental organization was able to conclude that out of all the things billionaires do, living a jet-setting lifestyle, driving exotic race cars, etc., the worst thing to do is own a yacht in terms of environmental health. Yachting contributes to massive gas emissions and oil pollution in the water, destroying air quality as well as devastating local marine life. You have to understand that the life of a yacht crew member isn't exactly a walk in the park. They're compelled to work for considerably long hours, not just to ensure that the guests are properly accommodated, but to ensure that the vessel is always in top-notch working condition. They have to work around the clock to cater to the endless demands of the guests during parties, prepare food, restock supplies, manage inventory, clean the boat, etc. All of this leads to total mental and physical exhaustion, lack of focus and productivity, and fatigue. And what's worse is that these people often have to work for very low wages, especially those working at entry-level designations. The pay doesn't reflect the grueling nature of their tasks. Plus, many individuals aren't provided any form of health insurance or any other type of benefits. Then there's sexual exploitation. Yep, those in service roles often have to contend with catcalling, impolite advances, sexual comments, and at times physical harassment from both the guests and their colleagues. All of this creates a very toxic work environment for the victims, often leading them to suffer emotional distress and breakdown. On the other end of the spectrum, crew members often have to face verbal abuse, especially when working in a high-stress environment, a billionaire's boat party. Unfortunately, due to the very secretive nature of the elite yachting scene, there aren't a lot of insider reports on the prevalence of sex trafficking within the yachting industry. However, it is undoubtedly quite rampant. You have to understand that the yachting culture specifically attracts the ultra-rich and influential. Given the pure opulence, indulgence, and exclusivity associated with this culture, plenty of wealthy clients often seek immoral and illegal activities, such as having sexual intercourse with underage or potentially trafficked girls and women. Sex traffickers leverage the anonymity and flexibility provided by yacht owners, allowing them to operate in a wide variety of locations across the globe. In addition, sex trafficking typically involves the underworld or organized crime networks spread across the world that facilitate the transportation of women and underage girls through yachts. And because they operate internationally, it's very difficult for agencies to track and prosecute these entities. You have to understand that crew members don't have ample living spaces. They often have to live and sleep in small rooms in proximity to one another, which can lead to intimacy as well as the potential for unconsented sexual advances and harassment from other crew members. In addition, the yachting industry is male-dominated, which further increases the risk of sexual harassment and gender-based immoral advances and discrimination. Coercion is another problem in the yachting culture. Yacht parties often involve excessive alcohol consumption and drug use. Couple that with the wealthy, and it becomes easier for guests to coerce untrained and young crew members to engage in illicit behaviors or sexually harass and assault them. And because the ultra-rich think they can get away with anything because of their status, they may easily manipulate crew members, sexually exploiting them. Sex trafficking is, unfortunately, a very rampant issue in the yachting industry. And while a lot of cases go unreported and fail to make the headlines, there have been some that have helped shed light on this issue. For example, in 2018, the Italian authorities were successful in identifying and apprehending criminals involved in sex trafficking using yachts in prime hotspots along the Amalfi and Sardinia coasts. In another case, the Greek law enforcement agencies were able to dismantle a sex trafficking ring in 2020. The criminals were operating out of the island of Mykonos. The authorities later revealed that the same criminal organization was also responsible for exploiting and forcing women to become prostitutes in other parts of Europe, offering them to wealthy tourists on yacht parties. The primary strategies used by sex trafficking criminals and facilitators is to lure unsuspecting women, especially those who are desperate, in dire straits, migrants, or poor, by offering them false job propositions, offering them an opportunity to earn a decent amount of pay and make a life for themselves by working on yachts. One of the more economically devastating effects of the yachting culture is that it propels property prices and causes gentrification. This can be especially problematic and expensive for people living in coastal communities where access to amenities and services may already be high. It can potentially compel the locals to migrate to another region, uprooting their lives and livelihoods, and worse, experience a loss of community cohesion. In addition, because of the prevalence of the yachting culture in coastal communities, a lot of businesses tend to prioritize maximizing their services, catering them only to ultra-rich yacht owners and wealthy tourists. Commercialization targeted towards the elite ends up limiting or ending access for the locals to basic amenities such as groceries and healthcare. As communities and local businesses are gradually compelled to adapt to the tastes and preferences of the rich and affluent, further boosting the prevalence of the yachting culture, the authenticity and uniqueness of that coastal community in terms of its heritage and culture begin to dilute and gradually vanish. Moreover, the yachting industry can also potentially lead to cultural appropriation, where the domestic heritage and culture of the local community, for example, their culinary delicacies, clothing, traditions, customs, etc., are essentially commercialized. In addition to this, yachting can also cause rampant destruction to the environment, mainly the marine life. As a result, this can impact the livelihood of people who depend on fishing as a means of sustenance.